I am 45 years old now, and this is the first time I am telling my story from start to finish without omitting a single painful detail. Not for sympathy, not for validation, not for anyone but myself. My name is Charlotte, and for decades, I allowed people to control the narrative of my life, deciding what I could and could not do. But this story is mine, and I am finally taking it back. I met Michael, or so I thought, when I was 37. I had been single for years, wrapped in routines of work, family, and personal responsibility. I had no desire for grand romance. I had long ago decided that love, if it ever came, had to come quietly, gently, like a soft wind brushing past my life, not like a hurricane tearing through it. I had spent my 30s caring for my ailing mother, helping my younger brother when addiction pulled him down, being there for friends in ways that left me exhausted. Love had never been something I sought for myself. And yet, when Michael entered my life, I felt seen in a way I had never experienced before. He was charming, of course, but understated, not the type to boast about wealth or accomplishments. He claimed to run a small financial consultancy in our city, earning modestly, nothing extravagant. He had a quiet confidence, a soft-spoken intelligence that drew people in. And for the first time in years, I allowed myself to hope. Our courtship was deliberate, slow, every step measured. I was cautious. Life had taught me that impulsive trust could be dangerous. But Michael was patient, attentive, never rushing, always making me feel like I had the power to choose. Within a year, he proposed, quietly, at home, over a candlelit dinner that he had arranged himself. There was no diamond ring, no grand gestures, just a simple, heartfelt question. Would I marry him? I said yes, because for the first time in my life, I believed I had found someone I could trust. Marriage, however, revealed cracks that were invisible during the first year. Michael suggested I reduce my work hours, claiming the stress of my job was taking a toll on me. I trusted him because I thought he knew what was best. Soon after, he began managing the finances. He insisted I leave the details to him. I understand numbers better, he said. I agreed. Naive, wanting harmony, desiring peace over suspicion. Isolation began subtly. Friends who questioned his intentions or gave me advice were slowly written off as toxic or negative. My family, my lifeline, became inconvenient in his narrative. My mother, who had raised me through difficult times, was overbearing. My brother, struggling to get back on track, was unstable. I questioned myself, my judgment, my own sanity. It felt easier to give in to Michael's perspective than to fight for my own, and he knew it. Financial control followed, like a quiet flood. I stopped buying things for myself, stopped planning any trips or indulgences. I deferred every decision to him. He claimed money was tight, clients delayed payments, expenses grew, life was unpredictable. I did not yet realize that behind the curtain, Michael's finances were flourishing. He was constructing a labyrinth of shell companies, hidden investments, and offshore accounts entirely invisible to me. My sacrifices were unnecessary, my obedience explaupen. It took a moment, a single afternoon, for the veil to drop. I was organizing papers in the office when I found a hidden folder. Investments and assets. Curious, I opened it. My hands trembled. Bank statements, financial contracts, detailed records of businesses I had never heard of. Proof that Michael had been lying to me for years. His modesty, his financial struggle, his appeals to protect me, they had been a fabrication, carefully designed to manipulate me. I confronted him that evening, calmly, without emotion. He smiled and said, "Charlotte, you wouldn't understand. Gaslighting wrapped in charm. He told me secrecy was protection, not deception." That night, I didn't cry. I planned. For 3 years, I played the obedient wife he expected. Grateful, patient, compliant. But secretly, I collected evidence, emails, financial statements, receipts, hidden accounts, all meticulously cataloged. I studied forensic accounting online under a pseudonym, rebuilt my own network of colleagues who could verify transactions. Slowly, silently, I gained the knowledge and leverage I needed. My patience became a weapon. Michael's arrogance grew. He believed I was blind to the truth, that I would remain unaware, loyal in my ignorance. Every underestimate became my advantage. I watched him slip up, sign contracts without reading, boast of hidden profits to friends thinking I didn't know, reveal patterns of manipulation that would later serve as evidence. I learned his weaknesses, cataloged his lies, waited for the right moment. At 44, I filed for divorce. Michael laughed when served. "You have nothing," he said. "You're overreacting." I smiled. I had everything. Not just the proof of his wealth, but the proof of his lies, his manipulation, his emotional abuse. The legal battle was meticulous, each step carefully executed. I revealed hidden accounts, shell companies, offshore trusts. I provided evidence of psychological manipulation, isolation tactics, and deceit. The court was forced to acknowledge the depth of his scheming. When the final ruling came, his empire was frozen, his assets seized, and his reputation destroyed. And I walked away, financially secure, emotionally liberated, and finally in control. Pregnancy complicated the process. I was carrying my daughter when I realized the full extent of Michael's lies. Every prenatal appointment, every kick, every sleepless night amplified the stakes. He believed he could control me through fear and emotional leverage. I had become untouchable, a master of patience, observation, and strategic planning. The birth of my daughter was quiet but empowering. I ensured that her early life remained unaffected by Michael's manipulations. Every decision, who could visit, how finances were managed, what information she would be exposed to, was calculated to protect her and reclaim my autonomy. He believed charm and dominance could work. I had built an unassailable fortress around myself and my child. I never sought revenge in anger. Every action was calculated, every response deliberate. By the time Michael realized the extent of my understanding, the moment he understood that his arrogance and deceit had been cataloged, recorded, and leveraged against him, it was too late. My patience had been my weapon, my intelligence, my shield. The collapse of his empire was quiet, surgical, inevitable. Revenge did not bring joy in the way the movies suggest. It did not explode in chaos. Instead, it brought justice, clarity, and the restoration of power. I learned that patience is strength, preparation is liberation, and observation is power. When I finally confronted him with the consequences of his deceit, I did so with calm authority. Not rage, not shouting, not drama, just truth. And truth, after years of lies, is absolute. Now, at 45, I live fully, honestly, and unafraid. My daughter is safe. My past is controlled. Michael's empire lies in ruins, a testament to underestimating me. I choose every day to live my life on my terms, empowered by the knowledge that the quiet, patient work of preparation can yield ultimate liberation and justice. My story is my own, reclaimed and finally told. Even after Michael's empire had collapsed and the court had declared me the rightful guardian of our assets, the sense of relief I expected didn't come immediately. There was no applause, no cinematic moment of triumph. Instead, there was an eerie silence, the kind that fills every corner of a house once dominated by lies. I walked through the rooms, touching the furniture we had chosen together, the very objects that had once symbolized security, now mere reminders of deceit. My daughter, asleep upstairs, was oblivious to the shadows of manipulation that had haunted these walls. And yet, protecting her, ensuring her safety, became my anchor. I realized quickly that victory was not measured in the courtroom or in financial security alone. It was measured in the reclamation of my time, my thoughts, and my future. I started small, with tasks that reminded me I existed outside of manipulation. I cooked meals not to appease anyone but for myself. I rearranged the house, giving each room a voice of my own design. Walls were repainted, furniture rearranged. The home began to feel like a sanctuary again, not a stage for deception. Sleep came slowly. Nights were filled with fragmented dreams of Michael's smiling face, the rehearsed patience, the fake warmth. I woke in the middle of the night, sometimes shaking, as though my body was still remembering 2 years of tension, of living in a cage of lies. Slowly, I taught myself to breathe again, to anchor each breath in reality, not in the shadows of the past. Meditation became my ritual, a sacred space where I could untangle the emotions that had been knotted by manipulation. I also began to write, not letters to Michael, not journals to vent anger, but reflections on the journey itself. Every moment of fear, every hour of watching, every painstaking act of preparation became a story of resilience. Writing allowed me to see myself outside of victimhood, to see Charlotte not as someone deceived, but as someone meticulous, courageous, and patient enough to reclaim her life. My relationship with my daughter deepened in ways I had never anticipated. The first morning I brewed coffee while she slept peacefully in her crib, I felt a rush of gratitude. I realized I could be present fully without fear, without the oppressive shadow of Michael's control. I began to take her for long walks, teaching her the things I had learned the hard way: how to trust cautiously, how to observe carefully, and how to stand tall when someone underestimates you. Even Michael's presence faded into the background, though not without lingering reminders. Occasionally, his name would surface, on social media, in casual gossip, in dreams that refused to let go. But instead of panic or anger, I felt detached curiosity. What had he thought he would achieve by testing me, by assuming my compliance? The question no longer needed an answer. I had moved beyond it. My focus had shifted entirely to growth, to building a life that was authentic, not dictated by someone else's selfish designs. Professional life also beckoned. After years of stepping back to accommodate his control, I returned to architecture, but this time on my terms. I accepted projects that inspired me, refused those that demanded compromise, and built a small but dedicated team who respected creativity and integrity over manipulation or office politics. My confidence returned in waves, like sunlight breaking through heavy clouds. I realized that control over one's career was as vital as control over one's home or finances, perhaps more so because it reminded me daily of the autonomy I had fought for. Even friendships evolved. People who had distanced themselves during the turmoil returned cautiously, but I recognized the difference between relationships rooted in obligation and those anchored in mutual respect. I surrounded myself with individuals who celebrated resilience, honesty, and empowerment. My social circle, once superficial and convenient, became a network of support, guidance, and shared strength. Therapy continued, even after the legal battles ended. I didn't need to discuss Michael anymore. The sessions were about me, about unpacking trauma, about understanding why patience and empathy had been weaponized against me. I confronted every lingering doubt, why I had stayed so long, why I had doubted my instincts, and how I could teach my daughter to navigate life with discernment without falling prey to manipulation. Each session, each hour was a stitch mending the fabric of self I thought had been torn apart. There were also moments of anger, raw and unfiltered. I allowed myself to feel them fully. The betrayal, the loss of time, the stolen energy. I did not censor the rage because it was part of the healing. I screamed in empty rooms. I punched pillows. I let tears flow freely. Yet each outburst was brief and intentional, a way to burn away residue rather than letting it fester. Social milestones took on a new meaning. Attending school events with my daughter, celebrating her birthdays, hosting small gatherings of friends who respected me. These were no longer background activities, no longer things to endure. They were victories in their own right. Each moment was a testament to the life I had fought to reclaim, a visible, tangible reminder that independence and empowerment were achievable, even after deception and betrayal. Financial independence became a fortress. I carefully structured investments, diversified accounts, and ensured my daughter would never face a situation where control could be seized from her. Money was no longer a weapon wielded by another. It was a tool for freedom, opportunity, and security. Watching my wealth grow under my direct management was strangely cathartic. It wasn't about luxury or ostentation. It was about proof. I had navigated a storm and come out stronger, unbroken. By the time I celebrated my 45th birthday, a profound sense of calm had settled over me. The shadow of Michael's deceit no longer loomed. It existed only as a story, a chapter, a lesson. I looked at my reflection and saw not the betrayed woman, but Charlotte, the strategist, the mother, the architect of her own life. I had reclaimed my narrative fully, and the empowerment was intoxicating in its quiet intensity.